The July fuel price drop has been welcomed as more relief for motorists amidst the increased cost of living. It is the second consecutive decrease which comes into effect at midnight. 95 unleaded dropping by 99 cents a litre and 93 octane declining by R1.05 a litre. Both grades of diesel have also gone down by between 25 and 31 cents. And then if you look at illuminating paraffin, it's going down by 18 cents. LPG gas going down by 22 cents. The decreases have been attributed to the lower cost of lower international oil prices, along with a slight appreciation in the rand-dollar exchange rate. Let's talk about it now with Economist Mudiwa Gavaza. Mudiwa, good morning to you. Thank you very much for your time. So this is always welcome news, any saving for consumers, and it represents, as I've just mentioned, the second consecutive decrease. The department is attributing it to lower international petroleum prices and the rand also appreciating slightly against the US dollar during the period under review. And I really, for the benefit of our viewers, want to start with understanding why those petroleum prices are in fact lower. Is it because those countries are simply producing more?
Good morning, Iman. It has been a very interesting time, and there's always a lot to unpack when you're thinking about the price of fuel. But, over the last couple of months, I would say, there's been efforts, to actually increase production of oil, especially in the current month and in maybe the month or so to come, because you do have the US that's in summer. So we are feeling some of the benefits of the fact that demand hadn't been where it is right now. For example, tomorrow is the 4th of July, and that tends to be a huge, weekend in the United States because it's the Independence Day, and there's a huge expectation around travel. Some estimates say an increase of up to 4 or 5%. Of travel on the road compared to 2023. So all of those things are driving up demand, for oil right now. So at least in the previous months, the demand wasn't where it was now, and we were benefiting, from, that type of thing. And as a result, of this increased demand that's happening right now, we have seen that oil prices are actually at a 2-month high, currently trading, at their highest since about April. So all of those factors, do fit in. The rand, did strengthen a little bit in the period under, review, but is now, a bit weaker than it was when these decisions were made. And I think just the last thing that is people do need to know about the way that fuel prices are determined is that we have price adjustments that happen every first Wednesday of each month. But the determining factors are usually retrospective. So it's usually done a month backdated. So you look at the previous month as opposed to looking at the current and, month ahead. So the factors that were happening a month before are what have determined the current prices. So right now, what we're talking about, increased demand in the US, a slightly weaker rand, some of those things, depending on how they play out in the coming months, will then influence next month's, fuel price.
Mudiwa, I want us to talk a little bit more about the oil-producing countries themselves. We know that there are various blocks around the world, and some of them have, I don't want to say monopolistic control, but they certainly own a huge chunk of, oil production in the world. We can think about, 40% of the world's oil production coming from places like the US, Russia, and Saudi Arabia combined. And then you have the other blocks that produce OPEC, countries producing oil. Talk to us about who the players are really quickly. And I just want you to bear with me as well. We're going to kind of move between you and Cape Town a bit as we expect some of the ministers designate to start arriving at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. So let's maybe deal with this one. I'll pop over to Cape Town. We'll come back and continue our talk. Go ahead.
So as I said, you've got a number of, as you did mention, there are a couple of, big countries you're thinking about, the likes of Saudi Arabia, you're thinking about, Russia, you're thinking about the United States, those OPEC countries, the oil producing, countries around the world. And when you think about, where demand is, one of the big things that has been influencing oil production over the last couple of years is what happened during COVID-19, where there was an over supply of oil on the market, and we saw oil prices crashing, to rock bottom prices. And you kind of see that attitude being pervasive, in those OPEC countries and how they determine oil production in the world, just so that, they're just at the right amount so that they avoid what happened before. And then I think the other thing to consider when it comes to supply and demand in the world is, as much as we're talking about increased demand right now in the US, the other big thing to consider is China, because the United States is the biggest oil consuming country in the world, but China is the biggest oil importing country in the world, and they haven't been importing, as much as they were previously. So all of those things have been feeding into this, demand and supply, dynamics that the OPEC countries are playing with.